Hello everyone, my name is Tom Brennan and welcome to our webinar, Don't Get Cloud Washed, Get Real Cloud ERP. This webinar came really spawned from some articles that it came out about suppliers out in the IT world doing what's called cloud washing. That's just putting cloud on the front end of their product and then claiming it was cloud even though it wasn't really. And that was happening in the ERP space. And so we wrote a blog about it. There were some other articles in the industry about it. So this webinar is really sort of an offshoot of that blog, and certainly if you want to go to the Rootstock blog, you can read more about it there. And of course, we'll be making this recording available to you as well. Just to get a couple of administrative things here. First off, we'll be answering most of the questions probably at the end, but I think you probably all know the drill. There should be a question box for you to put in questions, and we'll get to as many as we can. And joining me today is Mr. Scott Johnson. He's VP of Product Management at Rootstock. He'll be taking you through a demonstration of our modern cloud ERP application. But first, what I'd like to do is give you a little bit background on Rootstock and what we are trying to do with ERP and what we mean by real cloud ERP versus what we would call cloud washed ERP. So Rootstock is, Roots as a company is in manufacturing for many, many years. And our founders were from the industry and developed multiple generations of ERP products. But we focus exclusively on manufacturers, distributors, and folks who service tangible products. And so that's our focus. We don't sell financial software to banks or insurance companies or HR software to those types of companies. We are all about companies that make, distribute, and service tangible products. We serve a range of customers, emerging growth companies that may have outgrown their kind of entry-level ERP system, if you will. Lots of mid-size and enterprise companies that are replacing legacy systems, which there's quite a few out there still out in the marketplace. So we have the gamut of young, high-growth companies to companies that have 25,000 users of the system. So to kind of put this in perspective, and I guess to get to this, also to get to this whole idea of what a cloud washed ERP system is versus a modern one, a real cloud ERP system, you sort of have to look what's changed in manufacturing as well. And when you look at the legacy ERP systems, they were built for another day, another era in ERP, when there's a lot of standardization, a lot of make to stock environments. And so you saw a lot of very production centric standard costing manufacturing lines, designed to gear up and build a lot of common products. And that kind of spawned out of the 80s and into the 90s and even into the 2000s. And sure, there's tweaks along the way to those products, but what you'll see out there is a lot of older ERP products that are still the same basic product from those times, built for that business environment, but also built in that technical environment. And you'll hear the term hosting sometimes to describe it as well, but they'll take a standard old legacy ERP product, put it in a data center and call it cloud or hosted. And by the way, we have another webinar coming up on that particular subject as well that I'll share with you here in a few minutes. But we kind of looked at the marketplace and what was available in the cloud and decided that we needed to move things along technically, but also move things along to meet the needs of where manufacturing is going. And manufacturing was moving more to a world which was much more customer centric. We were personalizing products, we're personalizing the customer experience and the service around it. And that meant a lot of different things in how the ERP system was built and put together and the flexibility needed in order to deal with that. And so things like costing, using average and more project costing became more prevalent, especially if you're doing more personalized products as well. The connection with sort of a CRM system became more important because the customer experience was very a very prevalent strategy for a lot of companies, with Amazon and others, doing things to compress lead times and delivery times and getting fast service and all that. Really raised the bar across all industries, really. And so now it's not unusual to see manufacturers differentiating on service, not just the products themselves and the personalization of it. And then the world has changed an awful lot in terms of what our customers expect, how our suppliers want to work more closely with us, and especially with our workers, the profile of the people and what they expect from a modern type manufacturer is changed quite a bit. And so employees, for instance, we're going back to reshoring, and so we're bringing on more knowledge workers. And so what happens here is if you need an ERP system that's built for this environment, built for this modern environment that a knowledge worker is ready to use. And if you're still sitting there with an older piece of technology, it doesn't make your workplace an attractive place to work from a day-to-day, experience of what software they're using. So we, looked at this and said, what could we do to build an ERP for this modern, more connected world out there? And so we set out and used our basis and years of building ERP systems and really came up with 4 key things that we wanted to make sure we accomplished. And one was to make sure the ERP system was flexible to adapt to all those different business modes, different operating modes, like whether it's a personalized production or still a mixture also of make to stock, an example. So I'll talk a little bit about that. We wanted it to be more modern so that companies could keep upgrade and continually refreshing the system through time. Then the ability to connect people, and that not just their employees with mobile phones and things, but their suppliers and their customers as well. And the last thing is we wanted to be able to give management and employees generally a better view of both their customers and the entire business. And I'll talk more about that here in a minute. So many of you, I'm sure, come from an environment where you have a CRM system on one side of the house, an ERP on the other, and the two are pretty disconnected. So we're going to talk about that. So one of the first things that we did in the system architecturally is made sure that it can handle a lot of different business models. And companies are evolving these as they bring on new product lines. And so you may have started in make to stock, but now you're working in some of these environments. And so the ERP system needs to have multiple personalities to handle these different things. And we're finding a lot of people are not just moving from this sort of make to order, configure to order world, but also into way more personalized manufacturing, where customers are ordering literally a specialty product that needs to be built in that world. And so we built a product that can handle sort of that high standardization stuff if you have it, or the high personalization, or the mix of the two. And Scott will give you a little feel for how that happens here in the demonstration. The other thing is, when you look at this environment where you're trying to react to customers and things that they need and move production around very, very quickly and be light on your feet, you need a lot of flexibility all throughout ERP, from estimating through your costing, all the way through how you're doing your routings and things in order to react and be light on your feet. And so hopefully you'll get a sense of that as well in the demonstration. There's things like costing is the details that you need. Maybe in a standard cost environment, it's going to change a bit if you're moving more to that project world as well. So we'll cover some of that. Then the next thing that we try to do with this is say, okay, you got this very flexible ERP architecture. Now you need to put it on a modern structure. And in the past, like I was saying, a lot of the legacy suppliers, they say, hey, we're going to host it, we're going to put it on Amazon, and it's quote unquote a cloud platform. And really, those hosted environments, it's still the same ERP application, just in a data center, and it is one way to look at it. And there's certainly some benefits to that. But what we decided to do is build it on the Salesforce platform, which is actually called Platform as a Service. And what you get from that is with Salesforce, they provide Salesforce CRM applications like Salesforce Automation or sales and service kind of systems. But what you get is a number of services that come with it, like a reporting tools, dashboards, analytics, the ability to plug in other applications from their App Exchange, which I'll talk about, a workflow tool, a social media tool that's embedded in the application. They're all there. And so what we were able to do is build on top of that structure and provide an end-to-end solution where the front end of the process is Salesforce CRM to handle the marketing and sales side. We handled from, take that sales order all the way through the production, inventory and shipping and into finance piece, and then link up again with the service functions and Salesforce on the back end of it. And so we're sort of, one way you can think about Rootstock is where everything between, the front end of talking to that customer through service, then the life cycle through that whole thing. And so the beauty of this is it allowed us a number of things. One is it immediately allowed us to use things like chatter. So you'll see an example, I'm sure, from Scott, where maybe 2 or 3 people in different departments are talking about an invoice that needs to get paid. And what you're able to do is to track a conversation against that object or invoice. It's not something sitting out in Slack or out in email or in text. It's actually part of the system. And so it's embedded social media in there. That helps with communication. And there's also an audit trail as to what's going on with it. So what happened is when we built this, we automatically inherited something like Chatter in our system. Same thing with the workflow engine and everything else. And then the other part we get out of this is that we share what's called the same object model with Salesforce. So we're sitting at the same level as their CRM app. And so what you're able to do is automate processes that go from sales right through sales order processing and production. And you don't even know when you left Salesforce CRM and when you're in our ERP app. And you'll see that in the demonstration. And better yet, what it allowed us to do is to then join up the information in CRM and ERP. And we'll give you kind of an example of what that's all about too. So the cloud platform, choosing a modern cloud platform is a really important thing in this environment. And so, Salesforce really broke the code in it, and they have what's called a multi-tenanted cloud platform. It's been rated #1 by Gartner, IDC, and Forrester. They've been doing it for years, and it's a secure, widely used platform. But one of the things it allows you to do is take what's called a clicks, not code approach to build and add new apps. So if you're changing workflow, you can do it with clicks. If you're going to add your own application, I still see today businesses have tons of apps actually in Excel. And what I would say that the platform is a great place to put that, because you can add objects very easily. And once you do, you automatically, as I said earlier on, you automatically get the dashboards, the workflow, the mobile computing, and everything that goes with that. We'll show you a little example of that here today too. But once you do that and you've add our app in there, for instance, you're able to stay current. And that's the biggest downfall of sort of the legacy ERP environment, even in a hosted, quote unquote, cloud washed world. In those environments, you have to go through a very traditional upgrade process, which is very, very painful, hard to do, lots of consulting dollars. With this is you get a refresh periodically of the system, and it's much more seamless and far less, if you want to even call it painful, on the company. Certainly you want to check and know what's happening, but you're not rewriting things and going through giant amounts of testing to bring it through. And that's the beauty of cloud is being able to stay current. And it's probably one of the biggest differences between a true cloud app and one that's kind of quote unquote cloud washed. And the last thing I'll mention is that you can take not just your own apps and Salesforce apps and our apps, but there's also thousands of apps out on the App Exchange you can plug in, and it works a lot like your iPhone. So when you put an app on your iPhone, it automatically uses location services or knows there's a camera, things like that. It works the same way. So it's a corporate version of that from a platform perspective, where you can add all kinds of different tools, ranging from DocuSign for document management to heavier apps like shipping and logistics apps, as an example. So what we try to do then is say, okay, we've got this platform, and also then take it and how can you extend it out? And we know manufacturers and distributors are trying to reduce the friction in their supply chains. They're trying to get a tighter relationship between their customers and suppliers and reduce that space. And one of the beautiful things that the Salesforce platform allows us to do is take the functionality that's in ERP and CRM and turn it outside. And it's what they use is something called communities. And so we have customers who create customer communities where customers can check on shipments and invoices and other quotes that might be happening. It doesn't matter if it's in CRM and ERP. We have other customers who have a very close relationship with subcontractors, where they want to treat the subcontractor almost like a work cell on their shop floor. And so they want to provide a capability where they're feeding the work in, they can see what's going on. The subcontractor fills out what's happening with that work, their tickets and things, and tracks what's happening. So that way the subcontractor know exactly what's coming, and exactly where they are with that production situation. So this is one of the big benefits of using a modern platform like Salesforce. You're able to connect people in a lot of different ways. And then, it all keeps coming together now. We've got this modern platform with CRM and ERP on it. And now what happens is you not only get to connect your people, but they've got connected data. And what I mean by that is CRM data and ERP data is no longer separate. It's all in one place. And so no matter who your customer calls on that wheel, from marketing through right through service, on the status of an invoice that might be in finance, or delivery, then operations, or a quote, everybody in the company can see what's going on with the customer. They can have chatter conversations about it as well. So what happens is when that customer calls, you know everything about them. They'll think that you're clairvoyant, because you know everything that there is about them in one place. You don't have to bounce them around the different departments. So your first call resolution is very, 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 very high. That's what you'll see when you talk to our customers, is they're able to provide, and just in short, great service. And that's because they have literally everything they need to know about that customer at their fingertips at one place. It doesn't matter what department there is. There's no interface run between them all. You can see it all in one place. And Scott will give you a view of that here in a minute. Then the last thing on this is that you not only, because CRM and ERP are together, not only do you get one view of your customers, you can see the entire business from end to end across CRM and ERP. And from a management point of view, it's a wonderful thing. You can track where you are in sales, track where you're on profitability, where you are in production, all from one dashboard. And we'll show you some examples of it as well. And so essentially what you're going to see is a much more real-time system, from sales through operations through finance, all in one system, then with all the very slick kind of dashboards and analytics on top of that for you to see that. And it just falls out of how this whole thing was put together. Then the last thing I just wanted to mention was, our product. We can't show it all to you today. Today's intent is just to be an overview, but it's very wide and deep. And so this is sort of that chart I was telling you on the left. You got Salesforce handling that lead and opportunity side into the quote, then on the back end picking up the services part. And then actually you'll see when we do this, we actually blend in different places with those as well. But you see where we pick up the process through there, and we'll pick a few different things to walk you through here today. But rest assured, this is a very mature, deep product for ERP. And so I'm going to turn it over here to Scott. Before I go, I just wanted to tell you we have another webinar coming up with a gentleman named Frank Scavo, and he's going to go into more technical details on the differences between cloud and hosted ERP and why they matter. That'll be coming up here in a week or so. So with that, let me take it over to send it over to Scott. And he'll talk about why these pillars that we went to, what we're trying to do in terms of flexibility, being modern, connecting people, and providing that complete view of your customers and your company. Scott?
Hey, thanks, Tom. Can you see my screen and hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, great. So today we're going to look at an environment that's configured with Salesforce CRM, Rootstock, including Rootstock Financials. We also have partners configured in the environment, Compliance Quest and ZenCraft and others. We won't spend any time on those, but just to reinforce that message of the community and App Exchange, and being able to leverage other applications on the same platform in a similar way is all set up in this environment. So for those of you that are familiar with the Salesforce user interface and Lightning, this should look familiar. If you're typically in Classic or haven't used Salesforce before, then this may look a little different or be new to you. So I'll try to share a little bit of information, but focus more on functions and features than kind of the UI. So in this case, I've set up on my manufacturing engineering application. Applications are designed to group together different functions that a user may need to access quickly and repeatedly. So in this case, engineering item master, ECOs, bombs, indented bombs, those types of things. The home page is a common page that follows you around if you configure your apps to have the home page on there, as are reports and dashboards. So these applications can be set up and packaged like this one, or you can even go in and create your own applications, either in your own company or as an individual. So in this case, I've configured an app called Scott's App. You can see the different features and functions change when I change my app. My homepage followed me with the same information. I also have the ability to display more, so I can put more tabs on the app than can be reasonably displayed and accessed through the drop-down. You can also do some editing right here as far as adding more items to your app or removing items and so on. So very flexible configuration here as far as getting quick access to those functions that you need to get to, as well as displaying critical information on your homepage. In this case, I've got a couple of dashboard gadgets. I've got my tasks list, my chatter feed updates, and a couple critical reports down here. So all of these things are highly configurable and flexible to meet the needs of your company, whether you want to control that as an administrator or delegate to users. It's all very flexible. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at a standard Salesforce account record. So I'm in the CRM now, and Rootstock does a lot to extend the concepts in Salesforce, such as the account is extended into the idea of a customer with now attributes on the commercial relationship that you have with that customer. So in this case, in addition to the account name, we now have a credit limit. We have real-time feedback on the current AR balance and the current unbilled orders. So you can quickly see in this case, we're fine on the AR balance, but the unbilled orders are in excess of the credit limit. You can see that this customer is not on prepayment, hasn't hit their credit limit, or they're not on credit hold, and so on. So again, extending this concept of an account into a customer in the ERP with the ability to feedback in real time what the status of that customer may be. You could also create a related list around the sales orders that have been created and the opportunities those are related to, sales invoices. Again, all of this ERP data is shared on the same platform and is easily added to displays, in this case around the account object. Again, configurable by user. So if you want some users to be able to see this information and others, you can have different page layouts that show all or some of this information or none of it. So it really gives you the ability, since we have developed the app on the same Salesforce platform as Salesforce CRM, all of this information is easily relatable and rendered here, so you can see a very detailed view of the account. Let's go ahead and drill into one of these opportunities, and you can see an additional get an additional sense of how we extend the opportunity. So an opportunity is a combination of products and quantities and pricing and dates that's managed through a life cycle, and at some point when you win the opportunity, you're going to want to create that into a sales order. So we provide automation here that basically picks up all the information from the opportunity, creates a sales order, and then provides that relationship here. So if you create one or more sales orders from an opportunity, you can see that, and so on. So again, we're extending the idea of an opportunity now into, once you've won that opportunity, how are you going to build, procure, and ship an invoice, do all the ERP side activity around that opportunity, and that's all extended into Rootstock with automation. Now you can see on this opportunity there's a number of different products. There's a lot going on here with different types of products, and that's an area where Rootstock again extends the idea of a product. So not only do we extend the account into a customer that has commercial relationship and characteristics to it, we also extend the opportunity into a sales order, one or more sales orders. And then when we get into the sales order, we also have this idea of different types of products. Just go ahead and open some of this here so we can talk about it. But you can see a product type, whereas in the opportunity, all those products were basically the same. Now in rootstock, we are resolving them into different types. So a stock product is related one-to-one to an inventory item, more typical of a make to stock or make to forecast type product. Kitting, it has a couple of different configurations. I'll show you this one real quick. Basically, you can go in and define what inventory items make up that kit and what multiples. So in this case, for my accessory kit for my all-terrain vehicle, it comes with a kit of a jack, a shovel, and 2 axes. So if I sell 10 vehicles, 10 kits, it'll multiply that out and give you the ability to fulfill the kit as a separate product, have a single line item on your sales order, but drive demand, and also pick, pack, ship, and invoice these individual inventory items all at one time. You can also see a warranty item, which is not related to inventory, gives you the ability to recognize cost and also generate an invoice for warranty. Time and material actually creates a work order against that line. So when you book hours and issue material to that work order, it can roll up the price and or the cost for that item based on the activity. Again, a lot of details in here and a lot of flexibility in how you configure your products to meet your customers' needs. Now, when you drill into the sales order line, you'll see this is actually a custom configured vehicle. And as part of the setup, it's actually auto-generated a work order from this sales order line that matches the custom configuration. Now that configuration could come in from Salesforce CPQ, a third-party configurator, and then Rootstock also has a configuration engine that you can leverage if you need to. So you can see all these relationships being built, and I can actually link into the actual work order for this item, see that it has been completed. I can go into the related details here and see which components actually made up that configuration, and so on. So again, taking the concept of a product and extending it into multiple configuration options and providing a ton of flexibility on how you interpret that order and how you fulfill it. All of these lines are similarly fulfilled and invoiced, and all that information is automatically passed down through the Rootstock ERP into Rootstock Financials. And in addition to forecast demand, the sales order demand can also drive demand into the MRP through the bill of material explosions and item attributes and lead time offsets and all that to help you plan the items that you need to buy as well as make. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at work orders here. So another way to navigate is you can go to your app launcher and type in a string. That will pull up an individual function that you may or may not have displayed in your app. In this case, I did have it. I just showed you an alternate way to navigate in. The UI, this is called a list view. Very flexible way to view different information. In this case, I configured a list of work orders. The features here allow you to select which fields you display. You can clone views. You can add filters. So you can put logical filters on here just to pull up the set of work orders that you want to see. And you can also sort by any of the columns to get a different look within that filtered view. You can also switch to a Kanban view if you want to see a different look at your data. In this case, I'm going to look at my work orders by status with a summary of my days earlier, days late at the top. So now I have a listing of my planned versus firmed versus picked versus received work orders that I can take a look at. Let's go ahead and open up one of these. Okay, so again, within this work order, you can also configure how the fields are displayed and which fields are displayed, and you can remove entire sections here. You can remove fields within the sections. You can reorder. Just very flexible as far as how this different information is rendered, as well as what peripheral information is shown on this on the screen. In this case, I have an work order status report showing, so I can keep an eye on orders that are due in the next 30 days to make sure that they're in an appropriate status, or just get a high-level view of all my work orders while I'm looking at my individual work order. You can also see related information such as the components that are required for that work order, the routing. All of these are configurable. The components come in from the bill of material and can be modified on the individual work order if you need to. Very flexible. Same thing with the routing. Those all default in from the item setup. You can also see a relationship to a project. This is common across purchase orders, work orders, sales orders. Let me go ahead and switch to Project Workbench here. Switch to a view of the projects of a project. This is what we refer to as a Project Workbench. Gives you a quick way to summarize the actual and budgeted costs around a project. So if you have, in this case, inventory allocated to that project, it will maintain that relationship and be able to show it not only here in this workbench, but also in dashboards and reports that I'll get to in a minute. If you have multiple sales orders related to that project and so on, not only does it keep the relationship to those records, like sales orders and work orders, but it also rolls up the activity as you progress through the life cycle of that project. So your material costs accumulate as you issue material to work orders. Your labor costs accumulate as you book labor against work orders, and so on. So very active project management capability, but again, very flexible as far as how that's set up and how information is related. Another good example is this is a specific project, but we have a home project as well where you can buy material to until you actually allocate it to a specific project if you're not buying everything to a project and so on. So again, very flexible. Within the as far as platform, again, if you're familiar with writing Salesforce dashboards and reports and creating dashboards, this should look very similar. This is a view, overall view of projects, included committed dollars, open orders, work orders. Project complexity is actually a custom object or a custom field that I added to the project master and created a report around. And I'll show you an example of how to do that here shortly. Instead of weeks and thousands of dollars to get a field added, you can do it in a matter of minutes as a good admin. You can also create custom objects and relate them. So again, it's not only a platform for us to develop apps on and not create objects on, but for you as well. You can go in and extend concepts of Rootstock into your custom applications, just like Rootstock does with Salesforce. Okay, we can also drill into these reports to get more detailed visualization. In this case, I've got a pivot of all projects by status with their budget and total cost. So I can see by project how they're doing against budget, and then overall at the bottom here I can see how my completed projects are progressing against budget. And then at the high level here I can see somehow I'm exactly on budget for all my projects, but some of them aren't completed yet, so that's maybe not such a good thing. But again, very easy to visualize information here, as well as drill into any details that you need to. In this case, the details for the project include links to the project itself. So if you need to update the status as an example, you can take this link out. If you need to update the budget, you can take this link out, and so on. So very easy to drill into whatever level of detail you might need, and then also expose links to those records that you might need to update. In addition to dashboards and reports, there is a platform capability called Einstein Analytics. We have an example of an Einstein dashboard built around general ledger transactions. So we'll go ahead and look at the previous fiscal year. You can see a number of filters here and the summary information. You can also pick one or more companies that you want to display. You can switch companies. As you can see, the information will update here. You can also have many different visualizations of the inventory, of the information, in this case summarized by account type, and then also within the account with some mouse over. So very rich capability to visualize information. This is just a small example. And also the ability to explore information. In this case, I've got a quarterly display. I can display that. Oops. Yeah, transaction date by month. Now I can change the pivot into month and get more detailed information. I could save that as another view, or I can just use it for this particular instance. I can also drill into information. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and break down that specific entry into its transactional information. I can see the actual GL transactions against that transaction, and then ultimately open an individual record that I want to see. So I can drill down from the highest level summary into an actual general ledger transaction in this case. There's also some ability to assign actions and chatter, send out a chatter feed from here, including information from these gadgets. So Einstein Analytics, I'm just scratching the surface here with one example, but a very powerful tool. You can see some of the other models that we're building out here. And this is, if you're not familiar with Einstein Analytics, it's actually a data warehouse based on data sets. You can see here lenses and dashboards in order to pull out information and create relationships that might not exist in the object model in Salesforce, as well as pull in outside information to include a CSV file of information that you might want to create a relationship with or pivot by and pull into your data set. So very flexible and very powerful and modern analytics tool that's right there on the platform for you. And again, since we're all on the same platform, the data set that you configure can pull from CRM objects, rootstock objects, your off-platform objects, and other App Exchange objects. Okay, so let's take a minute to go under the covers here a little bit. I'm going to go into the setup world and show you how to define a custom field on an object. And that's one of the things around the platform that people don't talk about a lot, but there are some huge synergies around user setup, security profiles, just training of employees around the user interface, training of administrators, training on how to create a dashboard and a report. Tom mentioned a little bit about application updates happening too. There's a very robust sandbox environment where you can test out the updates and then post them into your production org when you want to. And then also a very rich community around the App Exchange to pull in and extend additional capabilities that you may need as a company. So while I was talking there, I pulled up the object, basically the object record for the work order. I'm going to go in here to fields and relationships and just create a new field. I've got a nice wizard here that's going to walk me through it. I'm just going to select date as a format, but there's some very cool things around roll-up summaries where you can summarize related information, formulas to go look up or manipulate information through some syntax. These lookup relationships can give you relationships between objects, either objects you create and rootstock, or additional relationships between rootstock objects to help you with reporting and data mining, that type of stuff. But again, just select the type of field that you want. I'm going to go ahead and name it, let's just say follow-up. So this will be a date when I need to follow up. This is the help text, and I'll show you where that renders in a minute. You can also put in a default date if you wanted, say, this date to be 2 weeks after the record was created. You could easily put that in as a default formula. The next set of questions are just around who you want to be able to see that, and then which layouts you want it to be on. So this is going to automatically add it to my work order page layout, so it would automatically show on my screen. But what I want to do is make sure that since it's a custom field that I added, it's important to me, I can add it to the upper left-hand corner of my layout. So you can see here now my follow-up date has been added to my data set, and I'm going to go ahead and drag it right under division here so I can see it in the upper left-hand corner, and go ahead and save. So now when I come back to my work order, I can see that field is now available for update on my work order. It's also automatically added to the reports. So you'll be able to report on it immediately. And now you can see the follow-up date is set here. It's also immediately available on my list views. So if I wanted to add that to one of my pre-configured list views here, I could just let's finish this run. Here we go. I can go in, let me switch back to the table. And I can come in here and select fields to display. Come down to follow up, push that over. Let's save that. And now you can see the follow-up date is, is displayed here. And I also have the ability to do inline editing, so I can immediately start updating information in that field if I wanted to. It's another thing we are not talking about or demoing today, but there's a huge world of tools to automatically upload information into Salesforce, whether it's using the platform data loader or using the new MuleSoft tools that Salesforce just acquired, or other tools like Jitterbit or any data loading tools that you might be familiar with. But you can import data and update records very easily into Rootstock objects. So hopefully that example showed you how quickly and how flexible the platform is. This is just one example. You can literally put fields anywhere. Just one example of how flexible the platform is as far as adding additional information. Okay, and this is all in the spirit of clicks, not code. You can see throughout that process, I did not write any code. So now we're going to take it up a notch and talk about a workflow. Okay, workflows are pretty simple, but very powerful. I'll pull up an example here of a new customer workflow. So there's a couple of keys to a workflow. One is the trigger event, and the other is what you want to happen when that trigger occurs. So this looks a little daunting, but when you go into edit mode and actually go through the wizard, you don't really need to know, again, any code. It's all pick lists, and it's all set up there for you. You can just select which event. In this case, this trigger is whenever I create a new customer, and the approval status equals new and is created by Raylene. These are all the logic conditions that need to be met to trigger this, okay? Once the workflow is triggered, it's going to do three things. One, it's going to set up a task. So there's a full task engine on the platform that you can leverage. And I'll show you an example here. It's also going to send out an email, and it's going to do a field update. So three things will happen when this condition occurs, i.e. a new customer is created by Raylene. It's going to assign a task. So it's going to assign that task to me. It's going to give me 1 day to get it done, and then these are the comments. Let's go ahead and update the credit limit, update the agreement, and then submit it for approval. So we've got an approval workflow configured on the customer master also. That's another version of workflow that involves approval steps, which can be done via email or chatter or right in the application. Again, very easy to configure. Email alerts, again, who's going to get it, what template they're going to get, and those templates carry the related information. So it'll pull in the customer name and any other attributes of that customer you want dynamically to that email when it's sent. And then it's also checking the box to put the customer on manual hold until the approval workflow completes. And then at the last step of the approval workflow, it unchecks that box. So while it's being approved, it's on hold. And once it's approved, it comes off hold, all through automated workflow activities. So again, workflow is very simple. Trigger event, what do you want done? Your options are task, email alert, field update, all click configurations, no code involved, very administrator friendly. Okay. So we spent a lot of time on flexible and modern. So I'd like to pivot a little bit into connected and start talking about some of those things that Tom mentioned around communities. So in our demo environment, we have a community configured. It's very basic. I'll show you our actual customer community to show you little bit more of the possible. But you can see here, it's a very limited interface. I'm logged in as myself, so I'm seeing more information than a typical vendor would because of my security profiles. But we have full chat capability. We can provide suppliers with a homepage, expose opportunities to them if that's appropriate. Mainly what we're doing here with the vendor is exposing the purchase order line with some information, as well as the ability for them to come in and update dates. So these are fields on the sales order line that are update to supply, or that are open to supplier update, and they can do that right here through the community with their very limited access, and actually interact with our ERP data. Now you can see down here, I'm looking, there's over 1,100 records available. So what I'm going to do now is close this down, and I'm going to go into the community as a vendor. Okay, so as an administrator, I can pull up a contact that's related to an account. This is all the baseline for the community security. And I can actually log into that community as that user, and that's a way to vet their security profiles and really see what they see. So you'll quickly see that there's less tabs here. This is an actual vendor, so they can only see the PO line. When they come into the PO line, they get the same list view that I saw, so the same rendering of information, but now they're only seeing 321 records because those are the lines for the account that they're associated with. Since we have a relationship between the account and the vendor master in Rootstock, we can extend that relationship and security into the community, have a single community, a single list view shared across all suppliers. Same thing with reports. The reports respect the sharing rules, so they will only show the information. So if I gave them an open PO report or a scheduled shipment report or something like that, they could access that, even export it if I allowed them to, but they would only be seeing their information. So I don't have to write 20 reports for 20 different suppliers. I just have one report underpinned with security, the sharing rules. So very powerful capability here to configure flexible access for your suppliers and your customers to get in and interact with your ERP information, either to get updates from you or to provide updates back, or both. Let me go ahead and pull up our community here. So this is a more advanced concept of a customer-facing community. This is the one we actually use for our customers. You can see here we've got the homepage configured. We share documentation as well as the ability to discuss articles and ask questions. Let's see if I can get to. So customers can come in and ask questions, and then we'll provide answers either from our internal resource, the community at large, or partners. You can also come in and access documentation, in this case a PDF file around indented bombs. If you want to look at work order information, you can type in the global search there, work orders, and it'll bring up an article. All of these blue links are actually links off to other articles and so on. This is all leveraging the Salesforce knowledge base and articles. Okay, so again, kind of a vision of the possible. And then here's a dashboard that I use in real life to manage our product management caseload that, from cases that are created from the customer community and so on. So you could see how you can leverage the the platform communities. Let me see if I can get back here. Close the wrong window. Bear with me here. Okay. One other way that you can stay connected with your customers, and Tom spoke about this a bit, is the idea of a 360-degree view of situations and things. We like to say customer, but in reality, it's a 360-degree view of everything is what we strive for. So in this case, we're literally looking at a case, a support case, and around that support case, we have related information. So for this account, here's all the RMAs that have been created. For this account, here's all the shipped items and their warranty condition by serial number. Here's some information about that customer. They're not on prepay only, and they're not on credit hold. Here's their credit limit. You know, again, you can see how around this idea of a case, you can get a lot of information, whether it comes from the CRM objects or the ERP objects. You know, all these relationships can be built, and our majority are built out of the box. But if you need a customer relationship, you can easily extend it like I showed you. You can also take actions from the case. In this case, create an RMA is a common action, so we've added that as a punch out. So from any case, you can quickly create a given customer an RMA number and then fill in all the details to process that. We have very rich capability around RMA management and as built versus as maintained records and all of that type of stuff. So again, one example, this is all very flexible and configurable as far as what information is shared here. This is just giving you an example. Another way that you can extend and keep connected is through emails. You can see some of the emails here, approvals needed, new communications, approval, yeah, another approval needed. There's another cool feature right here. On reports, you can subscribe to a report with a condition. In this case, I've got a lot status report. If anything shows up on the report, it sends me a notice that something did. So you don't have to get a report every day and have it be blank. You can say, okay, only send me the report if there is a record in it, and it will then send you this notification saying, hey, you have lots that need to be looked at, or you have, you know, information that meets your condition. So go look at that. So it's very cool features that you can actually subscribe to reports and get them delivered automatically. You can also approve POs and you know, engage with approval workflows through your emails, that type of thing.
Hey Scott, I just wanted to point out we're coming up here at the top of the hour. If you want to wrap up.
All right. So getting the hook. So let's go quickly to mobile then. Another way to stay connected is through your mobile device. Can you see my screen, Tom, with my phone?
Yep, I got it. Yep, we see the mobile emulator.
So we have Root Scan here, which is a custom app around barcode scanning and warehouse type transactions as far as fulfilling sales orders and doing receipts and those types of things. You can also access directly into your Salesforce org from a mobile device using Salesforce One. So I'll just log in here real quick. And you can see, in this case, I've got my chatter feed opening up so I can stay updated on the things that I'm following and things that people are sharing with me. I can go in and see the same dashboards. I'll pull that one up real quick, go through the gadgets. So this should look familiar with that dashboard I just showed you. You can also drill into those reports. Obviously, there's some constraints with the size of the screen and optimizing for that, but I can also see my work orders. So not only can you add a custom field really quickly, but you can also extend it to mobile in that same effort. So you can see the follow update is showing here as well, and it can be edited and so on. So very easy to stay connected to your customers and your organization through the mobile capabilities of the platform that we leverage. So I think that's about it, Tom, unless there's any question.
I don't know that we have time. I just want to kind of wrap. Thank you, Scott. I want to wrap up by saying I think, if you're looking at a new ERP system, there's different levels of things to look at. Is one, the flexibility in the app itself. Then there's this underlying platform, and hopefully you saw today that we're moving from where very IT intensive, consulting intensive, to where business users can take over and start doing things in the app and being quicker on their feet and more strategic about how they do stuff. So it's really changed what ERP is all about and putting more power and capability in the business users. And then the last thing is, and you saw a number of examples of this, I think, is when you now combine CRM and ERP together, you have a much more powerful situation. It's 1 + 1 is 3. And you've got the business information to run the business end to end, and also everything about the customer, and then smoothing out the processes across those two as well. So on behalf of Scott, thank you very much for joining. Please come to our next webinar on the differences between cloud and hosted ERP. We have a number of other ones out on our website that go deeper in different functional areas. So feel free to help yourselves then. So thank you for joining today. Take care now.